In these chapters, the central idea is simple. Knowledge is not enough. You can be correct and still fail to connect. You can have the best producer, the cleanest farming, the most compelling vintage story, and still lose the room if you can't translate it into meaning. In wine, that translation matters because wine is not a necessity purchase. It's an identity, ritual, celebration, hospitality, personal taste. Wine is emotional. So rhetoric becomes the difference between describing a wine and really making someone want the wine.
Welcome to a special series on the Italian Wine Podcast. In this series, Italian wine ambassador Ryan Robinson reads and reflects on the art of wine storytelling, the latest book by renowned scholar Professor Attilio Scienza. From the myths of ancient Greece to the language of modern wine communication, the book explores how storytelling shapes our understanding of wine, and why these stories matter more now than ever. Let's begin the journey.
Think about the last wine you bought because you felt something, whether that be curiosity, nostalgia, aspiration, or trust. Not because you memorized a text sheet, not because someone hit you with the pH and TA levels. That felt something is not an accident, it's rhetoric. Today we're going to talk about rhetoric in a way that it should be talked about in wine, not as a manipulation, but as the craft of making a meaning land. Welcome back to the Art of Wine Storytelling. I'm Ryan Robinson, and this is episode 6. Today we'll be covering 3 chapters: the importance of rhetoric, rhetoric as a tool for winning hearts, and the 5 steps of rhetoric. If you've ever struggled to get someone excited about a wine that you just know is special, this episode is your toolkit. Because the truth is, quality doesn't speak for itself, people speak for it. Rhetoric is the bridge between what you know and what someone else is ready to care about. I'll guide you through the key ideas, and I'll also drop in a practical wine world examples, whether it's on the retail floor, restaurant tableside, distributor ride-alongs, and even that moment when a buyer is staring at a crowded by-the-glass list and you've got 10 seconds to make something real. The importance of rhetoric. Much of a university professor or communicator's work involves engaging with students and/or the public. Are they prepared for this? No. As Flavia Truppia aptly notes in her book about the importance of rhetoric and the power of words, teaching and communication require specific preparations, which is often lacking. Before becoming a teacher, one must be a rhetorician. Those who can speak well sell products better. Progress as students or professors and captivate audience during events. Rhetoric is a tool of persuasion. Unfortunately, rhetoric is rarely taught in Italy, though it is a formal subject in American universities. The word rhetoric often carries negative connotation, evoking empty talk or time wasting, sometimes attributed to politicians. A good rhetorician, however, is someone who can step out of themselves, focus on their audience, and achieve the desired impact through words. They observe their listeners, interpret their emotions, desires, and fears, and adjust the message accordingly. Perhaps the moment has come to reconsider the rhetoric of wine. Languages and narratives today use the same words very frequently to homologate themselves to the point of flattening the perception of products that they are very different in quality and reputation. In a profoundly changed world of consumption, generations, taste, access, and diffusion, work on language to diversify. Rhetoric is a tool for winning hearts. Public speakers are not immune to performance anxiety. One technique to overcome this is the excusatio propter infortitatem, an explicit declaration of the speaker's own inadequacy. Sharing this discomfort with the audience turns a feeling of inferiority into an opportunity to appear relatable. The speaker acknowledges their unease in their role, creating a bond with the audience. This excusatio has been used by orators throughout history to avoid self-promotion, which can backfire. This humble approach, known as captatio benevolentia, is a good way to win the audience's goodwill. The 5 steps of rhetoric. The classic framework of rhetoric involves 5 steps. Inventio, the invention or development of a thesis or idea to be articulated in the speech. The speaker identifies arguments to support the thesis, typically 3 or 4. For example, when discussing native grape varieties, one might start by defining autochtone, proceed to the relationship between the domesticated wild vine and the cultivated ones, highlight the contribution to the local genetic heritage from migration, and conclude with strategies to combat genetic biodiversity erosion. Disposatio, structuring the argument. Start with an excusatio, present the thesis, illustrate the supporting arguments, and end with a final slogan or quote. Avoid overloading the audience with concepts or images, as this can dilute the message. Illosutio. Refining the expression involves crafting the most appropriate linguistic style, often using metaphors to make the narrative engaging. Memoria. Techniques to memorize the speech, ensuring the orator can deliver it confidently. While PowerPoint slides help structure presentations, a mental outline remains essential. Actio. Gestures, intonations, and nonverbal communication, body language, tone, eye contact, and hand movements lend authority to the speech. Strategic silences can also maintain audience interest. Among the rhetorical devices used in storytelling, metaphor is the undisputed queen, but as Aristotle suggests, other means of persuasion are also required, presented by ethos, the speaker's credibility, pathos, the ability to leverage emotion, and logos, the ability to appeal to an audience's sense of logic or reason. Another effective tool to be used for narration are the commonplaces of mind, the topoi. They indicate a motif, a reoccurring thematic element in a narrative scheme, such as, for example, return journeys, nostoi, or heroes. They are widely used by speakers because they represent a tool in communication that is known to be understood by the audience. According to Aristotle's second book of Rhetoric, the most effective place to begin an argument are these so-called commonplaces, areas where there is a common ground with the audience. Another important technique is contrast, very effective since ancient times for its psychological force. In the world of wine, there is no shortage of examples. Tradition versus innovation, wines aged in barrique compared to those produced in large barrels, native vines versus international, indigenous and selected yeast, conventional and organic viticulture. But is emphasizing such contrast, which appeal to the consumer, especially the less evolved and influential, suitable for providing reliable and transparent information about wine? Does the consumer benefit from the communication in which various aspects of production are placed in a competitive framework? Or is it better to find a compromise, as often happens in practice? If not, we risk creating divisions and tensions, giving rise to tribes of people who desperately try to defend their positions to the detriment of the wine consumption. Instead, we need serious communication, rich in technical content made with simplified language, which leaves the consumer freedom of choice, which is not only emotional. A few guiding words are enough: landscape, territory, history, culture, and environment. So those are the 3 chapters that we've covered from Xianzi's writing. And so now I'm going to try to link that and summarize it into how does this apply to modern day wine. So when we hear rhetoric, a lot of us think politics. advertising, spin, words that are used to win. But the more useful definition, I think, especially in wine, is rhetoric is the art of persuasive communication. It's how we shape attention, create understanding, and move someone from interesting to yes. In these chapters, the central idea is simple: knowledge is not enough. You can be correct and still fail to connect. You can have the best producer, the cleanest farming, the most compelling vintage story, and still lose the room if you can't translate it into meaning. In wine, that translation matters because wine is not a necessity purchase. It's an identity, ritual, celebration, hospitality, personal taste. Wine is emotional. So rhetoric becomes the difference between describing a wine and really making someone want the wine. So here's what I want you to picture. Imagine this scenario. You're presenting a wine to a buyer. You say, it's a high altitude, hand harvested, native yeast fermented wine with extended lees contact and minimal sulfur. All true, all potentially impressive. But that's not rhetoric yet. You're just providing information at this point. Now, let's take the same wine with a different approach based on the 3 chapters of Shenza's work that we just covered. This is what it would look like. This tastes like the first crisp night of fall. It's clean, bright, and quietly powerful. It's the kind of bottle your regulars come back for because it drinks like it was made for the table, not the tasting room. So the second example, it's still honest, it has a human tone. And that's the importance of rhetoric. It gives truth a shape that people can hold. And when you do it well, rhetoric doesn't cheapen the wine, it dignifies it because it honors what wine actually is. Wine is culture, place, and experience. One of the big takeaways here is that rhetoric is not a decoration. It's not adding fluff. It's providing structure. It's choosing what matters, in what order, and with what tone for your audience. And that means rhetoric is not a talent that you're born with. It's more of a discipline that you can practice. As we move in to summarize chapter 2, rhetoric as a tool for winning hearts, we get into the part that applies, I think, to most of us. It's the part that makes wine sales and wine education, where my heart lies. So you can either feel magical or painfully flat, but the goal is to win hearts. Because most decisions in wine are emotional decisions with a rational explanation that comes afterward. So people buy because they buy what feels like them, what feels like a good story to tell. They buy what feels safe, they buy what feels special, and they buy what feels like belonging. So this chapter's message is that rhetoric succeeds when it aligns with the listener's values and emotions, not by lying, but by meeting them where they are. In classical rhetoric, you'll often hear about 3 modes, as is illustrated in the chapter: the ethos, the credibility, trust, and authority; the pathos, the emotion, desire, fear, joy, and nostalgia. That's the one I really like. And the logos, the logic, the evidence, and the structure. Wine people, especially exam-trained wine people, guilty here, tend to over-index on the logos. I know I certainly do. We lead with facts because facts feel safe. But winning hearts usually means that we need to lead with the ethos and pathos, supporting with logos. Now let's apply this into a practical wine world application. Here are 3 wine world applications to think about. When we talk about the ethos, trust first always. Ethos is not just I'm certified. It's tone, it's clarity, honesty, restraint. It's like saying, here's what I know, here's what I don't, but more importantly, here's why this matters. Ethos is also consistency. If you've ever had a rep who overpromises, you stop believing everything else. In the same way, if you oversell wine at a table, you might win 1 bottle, but you lose the guest's trust for the next 10 years. The pathos is the real engine here. The pathos is, it's not being dramatic, it's creating a felt sense of place and purpose. So try this. Instead of saying volcanic soils, but we're so trained to regurgitate, say something like, this wine has smoky, stony edge, like the fruit grew up near fire. The imagery on that, I think, is so much more powerful. Instead of saying old wines, which we love to say, try changing that narrative to these wines have been through wars, droughts, economic collapses, and they're still giving fruit with this quiet depth. You're not inventing, we're translating. And third, the logos, the confirmation, not the opening pitch. Once someone is leaning in, it's the logos that helps them justify the decision or justify their purchase. The price to quality, vintage conditions, farming practices, critical reception, what were the scores, or region comparisons. In other words, heart first, head second. Here's a line that I use mentally in the field. Don't sell the wine, sell the moment the wine belongs to. And I'm going to say that again because I think it's a powerful statement. Don't sell the wine in front of you. Sell the moment the wine belongs to. Because people don't just buy a Chianti Classico. They buy Tuesday night pasta that finally feels like a real meal. They buy the bottle they bring to their in-laws because they want to be taken seriously. They buy the glass pour that makes the date feel like a special event, a momentous occasion. It makes it feel like a date. Winning hearts means you understand the role wine plays in the human life. And then finally, the chapter 3, the 5 steps of rhetoric. Now we get practical. The 5 steps of rhetoric. Think of these as a repeatable system that you can run, whether you're writing a wine list description, presenting to a buyer, training to a staff, or just selling a glass pour. The classical framework is often taught as 5 canons. So step 1, invention, what you choose to say. This is the raw material, the facts, stories, comparison, sensory images, and values. Wine version, what is the one thing that makes this wine matter? What's the reason to believe? What's the most human detail? So for example, instead of listing 10 technical bullet points, pick 2. Pick one that builds on credibility, the ethos and the logos, and then one that builds on emotion, the pathos. Step 2, arrangement. The order that you say it in matters. And this is where I think most wine pitches fail. People start with the wrong first sentence. A high-performing arrangement in wine usually goes hook, which has some type of like emotion or relevance, and then a meaning, why does this matter? Proof, the facts that support, and then closing, the next step, the glass pour placement, the feature, the staff script. So here's an example structure by putting this together. If your guest loves Burgundy, but they want something new, this is your move. It drinks with that same elegance, but it's priced so you can pour it by the glass without sweating. Here's why it works. And then go on to list why. Step 3 is the style. How does it sound? Style is language choices. It's clarity, rhythm, metaphor. It's also restraint. It's just as important what you don't say as what you choose to say. Wine style rules that I think work. Short sentences win attention. Concrete imagery beats abstraction. One strong metaphor beats 5 weak adjectives. And avoid the thesaurus tasting note problem. We have all read these. We are all familiar with them. Try to avoid the thesaurus tasting note problem. Instead of unctuous, opulent, and voluptuous, try rich, but it still walks. Simplify, but your meaning still gets across. Step 4 is the memory, what sticks. Memory isn't only about what you are memorizing, it's about designing a message that people can retain. So wine memory tools, the one-liner. Burgundy energy, coastal price. Short, simple, direct. Contrast. All the perfume, none of the heaviness. The contrast in these two statements creates a very vivid meaning for me. And then the story trigger. This producer rebuilds terraces by hand every winter. That's something that's going to stick with your buyer or your guest. And then the name anchor. Connect the producer name to a visual or a place. If they can't repeat it, they can't sell it. And then finally, step 5, the delivery. How you perform it. Delivery is voice, it's pace, confidence, and presence. Here's some wine delivery rules. Lead with calm certainty, not frantic expertise. And I know I'm guilty of doing this, sometimes spouting off everything that I know, when I just need to take a step back and lead with calm certainty. Once I give up control, I realize I have all the control in the conversation. Pause after your hook. These dramatic pauses are very powerful, very impactful. Make the buyer or the guest the hero. And end it with a clear call. Want to taste it? Should we slot this by the glass? Let's feature it next month. These are all great, clear calls of action. Delivery can also include the nonverbal, so how you handle the bottle, the eye contact that you're making with the buyer or the guest. Letting silence do the work, just by staying silent and waiting for the other person to speak, holds volumes of power. It's really the courage to stop talking. Here's the takeaway. These 5 steps turn, I hope this lands, into a process. And if you're listening as a wine professional, this is your competitive edge. Not louder talking, not faster talking, not filling with more words, but putting time into making better structure to pitch the wine. Let's end this episode with a quick drill that you can do today as soon as you hit stop. So pick one wine that you sell a lot, or one wine you wish you sold more of. Write a 20-second pitch using the 5 steps. So the invention, choose 2 points, one based on credibility, one on emotion. The arrangement, you have your hook, meaning, proof, and then close. Style, 1 metaphor, 1 clean adjective, no jargon. Keep it simple and keep it sharp. Memory, 1 repeatable one-liner, one that will stick to someone's memory. And then in the delivery, slower than you think and end with a question. So if we put these 5 steps together in our quick 20-second pitch, here's the template. If you like blank, you will love this because of blank. It feels like blank. The proof is blank. Want to taste it? Should we pour it? Do that once a day for a week, and your selling and your technique and your teaching will change. So with all that information, that's it for episode 6. Rhetoric matters because it gives truth a shape. It wins hearts because wine is emotional, and it becomes repeatable when you use the 5 steps: invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. So in the next episode, in episode 7, we'll keep building this toolkit as we continue to read along the next 3 chapters in Attilio Scienza's book, The Art of Wine Storytelling, and we'll stay focused on what storytelling is actually for. It's for connection, clarity, and showcasing the human side of wine. If you're enjoying this series, share it with one of your friends or one rep who needs a sharper script. And if you want, you're always welcome to message me the wine you're trying to sell, and I'm more than happy to help you build a 20-second rhetoric-driven pitch.
You've been listening to The Art of Wine Storytelling by Professor Attilio Scienza, read and commented by Ryan Robinson. The book is available now on our site, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, and Amazon. Follow the Italian Wine Podcast on all the major platforms so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to rate and review us.